Okay, so part 2 of First Farmers, what we'll look at here is what is a civilization. This is pretty important because we're going to see these things, each one of them, in all of the civilizations we're going to study going forward, especially in Chapter 3, where they'll be introduced to us. So each of them has cities, a political system. They have an area of specialization where they have people who are, and a significant number of people, who are in non-food producing areas. They have status distinctions linked from a form of wealth, monumental building, which you see in evidence of there at the bottom, which is a Mesopotamian ziggurat used for religious services, and some serious long-distance trade, some of which we've just been seeing evidence of in the past 20, 30 years as things have been uncovered. Major advances in science and in art. So think to yourself right now, are we a civilization? Do we have every single one of those things? I think you can say there's no question that we do at whatever civilization you want to look at across the globe. We have the internet, though, and I don't think that the people of Sumer quite had that yet. So, diffusion and domestication, two pretty important words to keep in mind. And we're going to look here at a question. The first big question. The agricultural revolution marks a decisive turning point in the history of humanity. And you may say to yourself, wasn't this is First Farmers, right? So, what's the impact of these farmers doing what they did? Well, it's huge. And what evidence might you offer to support the claim, and what might you say you could argue against it? It's not really a turning point. You could kind of say, well, turning point, maybe it's important, but maybe it's not a big turning point. Maybe it would develop regardless. So let's look at some points that these are ones that Strayer makes in his text, and I think they're important for you to keep in mind, just for the test to put into your mind, what's the context of what we're studying here. After the agricultural revolution, you've got the ability to support much, much larger populations. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now you have the dominance of the human species over the entire planet. You are picking and choosing grains that will flourish and destroying ones that you believe are not good enough. Same with animal life. You're breeding animals, cows, pigs, goats, sheep. The exploitation and explosion of a technological type where you've got at first you're making pottery as early humans that are first farmers, and then weaving textiles, and later this thing called metallurgy. And metallurgy is a big term on the AP test. Metallurgy means the ability to make, first of all, and to use objects out of metal. And you see that happening in a massive way here. And today, maybe we're living in a plastic-urgy world where we see quite a lot of plastics being used in the place where metal used to be used before. Growing impact of humans on their environment, and you see it on the right, the picture on the right. I mean, farming and what that does to the land. It is going to take nutrients out of the soil, right? And you are going to be manipulating the land. You build a city, a massive city, that comes with some negatives and some drawbacks. If you want to argue against this, you'd say, in opposition to the claim, that the agricultural revolution is a long-term process. It's not a turning point. This developed over many, many thousands of years, maybe. And maybe what first was, in some cases, just a happy accident. You're saying, oh, okay, I see that there's a plant growing here. Let's try and grow this back near the cave. And before long, maybe that plant sprouts more seeds and people understand that how the growing process worked. This could be very much a long-term process. And if you look at it today, like how many of you are farmers? Not very many, I would think, or none at all. And the area we live in definitely used to be an area where there was some farmland. So, and Texas, of course, being a place where there was quite a lot of livestock as well, where you'd be a farmer, that sort of cowboy, although not that kind of cowboy. You know I'm talking about, cowboy fan. Also, that the agricultural revolution was a part of a longer process of more intense human exploitation. So maybe you could say it's not the agricultural revolution. It's that humans are inherently exploitive, and yes, they are exploiting the environment, but they also are going to exploit other areas. So here's a look at culture, because in a civilization you're going to have forms of art and culture. And these are some very early forms of art. I love these two. These are definitely horses. They're carved into the rock. These are cultures' learned patterns of action or expression. Material objects like homes and clothing, tools and crafts. Non-material values like beliefs and languages. So the engraving of these two cattle in the Sahara. I thought they were horses there for a second. They're actually cattle, so sorry about that. These are some skinny horses. But around 10,000 BCE, people settled in Central Sahara and began to engrave rocks and pictures of animals. And we see this evidence still today. It's still there. So you have some idea of what was important to them. Why would they spend so much time carving that into rock if it wasn't something that they felt like was important? The Neolithic age, as we said, saw pottery being developed, and then this idea of metallurgy, where metals mark a brand new level of human development and a way that humans can manipulate their environment and control it. The earliest forms of writing develop, of course, cuneiform. We saw this in 6th classes some. We know the impact of beer upon writing, because there's so much writing about the selling and distribution of beer to workers and foods to workers. And you're going to need to do that when you have a large civilization. Megaliths arise, like Stonehenge there, and they believe that starts to become erected around 2500 BC. So Passage Tomb in Ireland. This is a tomb around 3200 BC, BCE. Newgrange is one of the oldest and most impressive Neolithic structures. So real interesting. You know, when you look at that today, you think there's no way that that was built that long ago. But I'm sure some of it's been, you know, recreated or touched up or fixed or manipulated to create what was really there. But this is a good example of like what the work in one of the first videos I showed you here with First Humans, the kind of work that archaeologists and anthropologists are doing. There's a person here, some people don't see him. He's here with the surveying equipment trying to look and get an idea of what this place called Catohoyuk was like. And this is in 1993, where they were trying to uncover what this place might have looked like. This is present-day Turkey, and they built mud brick homes, and Catohoyuk means forked mound. And it's the high point of Catohoyuk is 6,700 to 5,700 BCE, which of course 6,700 is older than 5,700 because you're, you know, timeline stuff. Anyway, residents entered their cities by ladders, and Catohoyuk could have looked similar in some ways to these graphics. Where, why do you think they did that? Why didn't they have like, you know, an open society where you can just have homes like we have now? You can walk right up the street and knock on my door and bug me. And don't do that, by the way. I'm busy. But why would they have these ladders to enter the homes? And you can see some of them on the tops of their roofs. I mean, why are they up there doing that sort of thing? Think about that for a second. Well, what researchers have decided, as they looked at this, anthropologists and archaeologists, this is a protection from other tribes, potentially, but definitely wild animals. And at night, you can seal this place up and be sure that you're going to be safe. And the only way into your home is down through that ladder. Well, at night, guess what you do with the ladder? You just take it out of there. Here are two early Neolithic towns, Catohoyuk and Jericho, and to get an idea of their locations. And the spread of agriculture, it wrapped my E for some reason there. But you see some of the different crops that were grown, from rice in Asia to the wheat and barley of Western Asia or the Middle East there, the Fertile Crescent, to Mesoamerica, where you've got the beans, squash, maize, sweet potato, and the turkey. Very important. We'll get to turkey later, especially when we cover Thanksgiving. Common patterns of agricultural development. You can read through these, but some of them we've already discussed. I want to put these up here in another context. The one I wanted to focus on here is the extinction of some very large mammals. Climate change and hunting led to that, kind of a combination of both things. But this warmer, wetter weather led to more wild plants to flourish, and hunting and gathering people had learned some new ways to manage their world. Women were agricultural innovators during that time period. So then when they do settle into cities, they have an opportunity to be pretty important. Now, and we watched Diamond, I said it was all about the Aggies and Longhorns, because it's farming, systematic agriculture, and then the domestication of animals. Really, really important to kind of understand this, that it develops in a number of regions at the same time, but with some variations, as we saw in the previous slide. You've got plants and animals now available, and a few hundred plant species have been domesticated, and these 14 large mammals domesticated, of course, in the Middle East area, Western Asia or Middle East. That's where the majority of them resided. So they had a massive advantage to be able to create more of a civilization. Okay, this gives humans the ability to power the world and be in power over the world and their environments. Another big question to consider here, one of Strayer's big picture questions, is how did early agricultural societies differ from those of the Paleolithic era? And what about the Chumash? Very important to look through this stuff and to understand it, because this puts some things into context. I mean, we won't have maybe an essay on this on the test, but you're going to see multiple questions built around both of these parts of these answers. So I've kind of separated out here some. The agricultural societies had greater social inequality. Larger, more densely settled communities were less mobile, with the exception of pastoral societies, because they're always going to be mobile. They're pastoral. They developed more advanced technologies, as we've discussed, in metallurgy. Everyday life and health was not necessarily better in the agricultural society. Farming involved a lot of work, hard work, and if you were a farmer instead of maybe a scribe or a scholar or somebody in power, you're really working hard. As farmers know, it's an early day. So compared to Paleolithic hunting and gathering, well, I think you would seem to think, why would they even do agricultural revolution? Well, that's a really interesting question, one we're going to look at here with the development of civilization. But both agricultural societies and Paleolithic and hunting and gathering develop rituals and elaborate rituals to try to understand the world around them. So whether you're hunting and gathering or living in a civilization, the idea of the spirituality and trying to understand the world and how it works and functions was important to both. The Chumash are a complication. They seem awfully agricultural in some ways, and yet they're a Paleolithic society. So why are they complicated? They're sedentary. They are not moving like hunters and gatherers do. And this allows them to develop some advanced technologies. Why are they staying in one place? Fishing. And we're going to see the same thing happen in Alaska and some places in Oceania and Australia, where early societies are able to stay Paleolithic in terms of how their lifestyle is, but yet be more sedentary and not move as much because they don't have to. They've got a steady, stable source of food right there. The Chumash society, the acquisition of these goods, led to greater social inequality. So because you have stuff and you want to protect your stuff, you're going to build laws and put up barriers to protect that. So the whole society wasn't sharing equally in things like maybe a Paleolithic society would be more capable of doing. Also, the chiefs of the Chumash society, remember this is in California, the Chumash are like in the Santa Barbara area, and that's really confusing to me. I always think the San should be down there in Santa Barbara or San Diego, and but the San people are in, and not the Sand people from Star Wars, that's different, but the San are part of that group from southern Africa, the more nomadic, the definitely Paleolithic type. And Some of them are still around today. But the chiefs of the Chumash society resembled more closely an agricultural chiefdom rather than a typical gathering and hunting society. So we talked a little bit about spirituality and understanding of this. The Catalhoic art forms, like the Venus figurines, we've seen these pop up in a number of different places. Art, you see in the top two images there, and then architecture at the bottom, the city of Jericho, which is considered to be the oldest continuously inhabited city in the entire world. Last slide here, we'll show you the Paleolithic and religious spirituality. So in many cases, they believed in this pattern of a cyclical view of time, like a cycle. And they emphasized the endlessly repeated patterns of regeneration and disintegration. And you see the Venus figurines spread out around there. I'm going to take you out to something that I think is kind of interesting here. It is a quiz, an online quiz to test your Strayer skills. So if you click on this, and I'll lower the slideshow here and show you. This is from, and I'll lower the web cam here too so you can get a sense to see it. But this is from the second chapter, and I think pretty much all of these are out there. And it might not be a bad idea to check this out. They give you some vocabulary to know, and I'll make the text here a little bit bigger, Control++. And zoom in on it some. But they show you some vocabulary words to know in the pages that they're on, significant persons, like people, like the Bantu and pastoralists, and some geographic terms to know and to know where they are. But here's what I really like, the multiple choice answer questions. So if you click on, say, this one, which of the following were defining characteristics of a Neolithic society? A permanent settled existence with population growth. I'm going to click on A. Your answer is correct. Remember that there may be more than one correct answer among the choices offered. That's interesting. Let's see if there are more than one. Beginning of agriculture. Your answer is correct. Interesting. C. Oh, please try again. So C is humans as hunters and gatherers. How about D, the beginning of record keeping? Nope. I like this. I think this is pretty nice. It gives you an idea of a way to look through the chapter and quiz yourself a little bit. I think there are 20 questions, and this is prepared by, it's kind of a study guide prepared by the folks at a place called Stetson University, Stetson EDU, and let's look them up real quick. Let's give them a shout out here. Not the Stetson cowboy hats, but Stetson University. And Stetson University is at this website right here, so you can learn some more about it. It's just a college university. Looks like it's in Florida. So that's what I have for you today on First Farmers. The next video clip we'll see here in a little bit that I'll load is going to be on First Civilizations. So we've gotten 2 videos so far, a third one coming for this first unit.